Good morning from beautiful Brisbane, Australia. How are you this morning? It's Monday morning here and it's really overcast, but still running around in no sleeves because it's a bit hot after a workout. Thank you for following me over to my business page. It's been a long journey to get here, but we're getting there. This morning I wanted to share with you some information that's vital for those of us who've experienced childhood sexual abuse, and vital for those of us who actually are parents to children who've experienced childhood sexual abuse. Without the language and the understanding, we can't actually put steps into place to help us recover from childhood sexual abuse. So, what are some of the things that can carry on from childhood and be outward indicators that we've experienced childhood sexual abuse but may not have remembered it? Okay, so we want to look at the withdrawal from life and the mistrust of adults. That'll make us want to shut down from the world, actually. And as we get older into adulthood, the pressure of the world makes us feel like we want to shut down anyhow. It's like, how can I manage all of this when internally everything feels out of order? Pardon me. Suicidality is something that happens as well. So you want to look around suicidal ideation and get professional help for this, really, and somebody who's a professional in this field. It's so important. You can have difficulty relating to others except in sexual or seductive ways. So in adulthood, look at ways that you want to solve problems. Do you want to solve them because you believe the outcome or the do you want to solve the problem with sexual ways or being seductive, or do you want to sit down and have an adult conversation about it? And sometimes that's the only language that we come out of childhood with, and not knowing that there's other ways to solve problems, to manage them as well. You can have an unusual interest in or avoidance of all things sexual and physical. So that's the total opposite as well. So you can see how it's very different for everybody, what the outcomes are from childhood. Sleep problems, nightmares, fears of going to bed, and that a lot of people find, a lot of adults that I communicate with have problems with sleep. And I know I've had my own challenges with sleep, and I would go to bed and 20 minutes later I'm awake. And it took me, years. It took me years to realise that 20 minutes later I was having a panic attack, and that's why I was waking up. And it takes time and skills, learning new skills to manage those type of things so that you're not awake all night. Frequent accidents or self-injurious behaviours. So self-injury, and also just think about running into things all the time. And that happens because our perception is offline. One of the things that when we're triggered, that happens is we can't perceive how close or how far away things are, and we do run into things all the time. I used to frequently have bruises up and down my legs, and I'd think, why on earth did I run into that bed again? And I had no idea that my perception was offline. So in childhood, you can have a refusal to go to school or to the doctor or to home. Refusal to go home. Think about it. That makes so much sense. Some of this, when this language was put around it, I was like, oh my goodness, there's so much of my life that absolutely starts to make sense. Secretiveness or unusual aggressiveness. So some of us become more secretive in that we don't talk. And we grow into adults who are really good people that, it's like we have a sign on our forehead that says, you can talk to me. And because we're really good at keeping secrets, of course, because that's how we were trained in childhood. don't tell anybody, keep it secret, keep it safe. And it's just so untrue. We have to be able to talk about these things and process them. And part of our neurology is that we need to be in a different environment in order that our whole system can process and understand and put into a manageable awareness, a manageable memory of what we can and can't do with our lives as well. We just got trained in a whole different way. Sexual components to drawings and games. So think of somebody who everything, their only reference is sexual. And I think back, and sometimes it's just that they're young kids, but other times in adulthood it's like, why haven't you asked the question, why haven't you grown up and out of that yet? And maybe that somebody just needs to sit with that person and listen to them and explain to them, because also one of the other things that's offline in our brain is the social capacity, okay? So we don't pick up on the social cues. So sometimes it's necessary in adulthood to sit with somebody and explain all the different social cues and what we do and don't talk about. And we need to have compassion and understanding to do this. Sorry, I worked out this morning and I'm still perspiring, even though I've had a shower and cooled down and in front of a fan. So we can have neurotic reactions, obsessions, compulsiveness, phobias, okay, and they will come down to we haven't learnt how to manage our body, we haven't felt safe to manage our body, manage our physical environment. And so it's a matter of training our brain as well, the neurology, that I am safe to manage this part of my life and I can let the overwhelming feelings come up and I'm going to be safe to do that now. Whereas in childhood, we had to literally hold on to them and often move into disassociation or dissociation, whichever way you prefer to say it. And in order, and dissociation is when we create another separate part in our mind in order that we can go there, and that's our safe environment. So when we come into adulthood, we need to work on bringing our focus into the present so that we know that we're safe. We don't have to keep running off and hiding in our secret place. We can actually be here now in the present and we are safe. And it is a lot of self-talk that goes into that as well. But if we don't have the awareness and we don't have the information, then we haven't been able to do it until now. And that's okay, because when we do, we then begin to notice it more frequently in our day-to-day life. And then we're able to say, right, I see what's happening now. Habit disorders, biting, rocking. We can develop a whole different range of habits as coping mechanisms. Sometimes the coping mechanisms is to reach for food all the time because it was the nearest thing. But then if you came up and you didn't have a lot of food when you were younger, it can trigger you in the opposite direction as well. I know when I'm out in public and there's a whole crowd of people and it's just the cognitive overload is there, especially if I'm tired, I know I self-soothe by just rocking. Other people will self-soothe by tapping. They need to feel the physical. It's very, very different for everybody. We develop coping mechanisms in lots of different ways. One of the things that can happen is people get led into prostitution, and that's because they've been trained that the only value they have is in using their body, all right? And our value comes much deeper than that. We can find that forcing sexual acts on other children, okay, that's really hard for me to even contemplate or think about. Especially when you've had kids, it's hard. We can't even wrap our mind around it, okay? But when somebody is so broken and they can only think of themselves first, this type of thing can happen. Extreme fear of being touched. whilst I don't have an extreme fear of being touched in adulthood, I'm very, very particular about who I want to hug me or who I let to hug me. I have to really get to know somebody first before I feel comfortable letting people touch me. And it's not that I'm afraid of touch. Some people are. It's just that whether I let you within my boundaries. So boundaries are something that we learn, and boundaries are about us being comfortable and the other person being comfortable as well. It's not about, okay, as long as they feel comfortable, then it'll be okay. No, it's about having enough love and compassion for ourselves and for others that I need to be able to say, right, this is what I feel comfortable with, this is what I don't feel comfortable with. And that's okay. And even if you're in a community where there's a lot of huggers, it's okay to say, thank you, but I'm not up for a hug today. And you can do it in a manner that is not confronting. It doesn't have to give anything away. It's just simply you put your hand out first. And I know lots of people who aren't into the hugging community, and that's okay, because actually what you can do if you like hugging, I don't know if you've seen, but there's people in America that have businesses where they hug other people. Unreal. And then there's meetups. Meetups is an app and it's worldwide. If you need hugs, go and get them. It's not something that I grew up in my community was home. We didn't have heaps of that. That's okay, but I changed it with my kids. But just be aware of what you feel comfortable with. And it's a good thing to be aware of, because as you become more comfortable, aware of what feels comfortable for you, you're going to be able to address the deeper emotions that need to come up and out and be processed through the physical as well. There can be an unwillingness to submit to physical examination. I'm laughing because I think back of all the times that I felt so uncomfortable, especially when you're a woman and you're having kids and you have to go through all the physical stuff, examinations when you're pregnant. And I think doctors pretty much got the message that there was no way that was going to happen with me. I do not feel comfortable, because it just emanated from my whole being. I'm sure it's just like written all over my face. There's no way that's happening. So I didn't submit to heaps of physical examinations because I just wasn't comfortable, but I didn't know at the time why either. Okay, I wanted to give you this information today so that you could look at what may or may not be happening for you. And when you know and you have that language and you're able to say, right, I can identify that today, then we're able to go, right, how can I learn to manage that in a way that I do feel comfortable in my skin as an adult? How do I want to put a framework around it? How do I want to change that up in my life? How do I want to experience that as an adult? How do I want to shift that so that I can experience who I am as an adult? Thanks for joining in today. I'm sorry I just jumped into it this morning. My name's Linda. I'm a trauma recovery coach, and I come to share information with you so that you can have language around it, and you are also able to take this information to your therapist, to your trauma recovery coach, and begin to build strategies for you so that you're no longer triggered, so that you can live your best life, so that you can aim for breaking free of all the constrictions that happened in childhood, and that you're able to move into adulthood, into an area where you want to feel on top of the world coming to work every day. You want to feel that you have healthy and deep relationships, not just with your kids, but with those around you who are willing to participate in wanting more out of life than just the silent emotional generations that we've grown up with. If there's one thing I want to recommend you do is Google emotions and then click on the images part, and then download, you can copy onto your phone or have on your computer, emotional wheels, and they break down emotions into lots of different sections. So you'll see lots of different sections. So it's like a pizza, and then each slice of the pizza actually is broken down more and more and more, so that we can put language around our emotions as well. It's not something that we've grown up doing for many generations, but it's something that we can certainly institute into our daily lives now. Actually, once I finish the live, I will go and get an emotional wheel and stick one down in the comments. And what you do, if you're a parent, if you're somebody that has access to kids as well, is you can actually, even to other adults, let's face it, there's a whole, generations of adults, you can actually sit there with the emotional wheel and go, well, do you feel like that? And then go into it deeper, and each level is like, let's break it down a bit more. And it builds information, it builds connection, okay? And it increases your ability to communicate what's happening for you and your ability to be able to help draw out other people. Ali says that is what I want for my 22-year-old. So hard to watch her suffering from trauma. Yeah, not getting far with her therapist here in Northern Ireland. Okay, what you can do is say to the therapist that you want strategies for her, okay? With trauma, it's not about going in and digging deep into the emotions. We don't want to do that because our brain, our body, every part of us is soaked in the trauma. So if we go over and over the emotions, then we're just reliving it. What we need to do is put structure and strategies into day-to-day life. So create a routine, and also begin to look at where, if I can't do something, then I want to sit down and I want to make a plan. You know how in Australia we do things like go on car rallies. So on car rallies you have a map and a plan and each point that you go to. So what we want to do in our day-to-day life is, for one day, so for just today, I want to create a mud map of what I've got to do at what time, and then what I want to do is work out how I'm going to manage each point in time. So what I need to do beforehand, what I need to do along the way, how I need to feel safe doing that, what can I do that is going to make me feel safe, all right? Because it's the prime trigger in our brain, the neurobiology. The prime trigger is it'll go off if it perceives we're not safe. So as adults, we begin to understand, in this situation, I'm not going to feel safe, so I want to manage it. I want to retrain my brain that this is manageable. And then I want to be able to go, right, how do I manage that situation? And as a 22-year-old, she'll have a really good idea of what she can manage, what she can work around. And the therapist needs to be doing strategies and sticking to, order, because the brain needs the order. Not us individually, but we need to retrain our brain and work with the neuroplasticity, so changing the brain down to different routes so that it doesn't go reverting to being triggered all the time. Okay, I hope that helps. I'll put my YouTube channel down below for you as well, because it's got, I think, over 250 videos with lots of practical information, and that will help her as well. And it'll help you help her, because you'll understand the framework of what's needed as well. All right, thank you for tuning in. Have an awesome day or an awesome evening, and I will see you again tomorrow morning from Brisbane, Australia. Bye for now.